Hello, and what is up, all y'all good people? This is
Hey,
Kimberly
how's
Bryant,
this is Blair Bryant.
and we are with the Pop Culture Green Room. And y'all, this is so awesome because today we've
Yeah.
got one of the directors. We've got Guilford Adams, or we call him Gilly,
Yeah.
for the director for the movie American Clown. It's coming out. Super excited about it. It's starring
Yeah, David Arquette. We have
John C. Reilly.
you're in it as well
Yes.
too. Yes. It's Stephen.
And John C. Reilly. Okay, what else we've got?
So we're looking forward to hearing about this documentary so first things first, like what sparked this idea for American Clown, and was there like a specific moment in time where like or experience that led you to pursue this?
I mean, I was a director of American Clown almost just by default, just because I live in Los Angeles and I work as a party clown for a better part of 2 decades, and I have more and more kids that walk up to me and they're like, aren't all clowns scary? And I have to say no. No, I mean no, no, but and then it occurred to me, you know what? That's all they see now is they see the
Right.
sort of horror clowns and the Art the Terrifier and the Pennywise. And these kids didn't grow up going to the circus, and the circus hasn't been near as visible for them. They didn't see Ronald McDonald on commercials, and they didn't grow up with Bozo, playing at their local station. So they don't have a lot of exposure to it. And it kind of really, talking to other clowns and stuff, it really it raised my sort of awareness that, like, wow, we're underrepresented with a lot of the young people, and maybe we should be putting pen to paper, so to speak, and I should be documenting this. And so that was happening, as long as in the same sort of breath as here in Southern California there was like a scary clown thing that was happening too nationwide,
Right.
Oh, yes.
and circus closed their doors, and Ronald McDonald was kind of not visible anymore. So I thought, like, why they're curtailing this, and it's making more room for this sort of horror clown, which I'm not opposed to. I'm okay with a horror clown. I just don't want to feel like that's the only clown out there. And it bothered me that that was the last clown standing. So I was like, you know what? We need to document some of this stuff and find out what's going on.
To me, I find it really fascinating. And Blair and I were actually
Yes,
talking about
exactly.
this because we, like, our interpretation of clowns, for us, we always saw clowns as like good and happy because we always
Positive, yes.
and we associate them too with, like, I mean, of course, Rose of the Clown, but also Cirque du Soleil. So we saw that's what we
The
always
side of it that we had
looked
seen.
at and saw. So whenever we would all like watch movies like it and horror movies, it was, to us, it was like humorous. And
Yeah.
so, like, whenever we kids would flip out and like thought that clowns were like scary and became like this horrific thing. I was like, what planet are y'all on? But then now, like, once we scaled back and we saw the bigger picture, and it's like, oh wow, like people really do see that and think that clowns are scary. And now this is great because this is where you come in.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I think that there's in America right now, and maybe across the world, there's a sort of, we tend as humans to bond over disliking stuff more than we bond over
That's
liking
very true.
stuff. Haters are gonna hate. And so I think for whatever reason, clowns have a very tough time PR wise, and we don't have a very good PR person. I kid and say sharks have a better PR person than clowns do, because they get a whole week of programming.
you're right.
Say that. Yes, they do.
And clowns, and even people that don't like sharks are like, well, they're good for the water, so they get a lot. But clowns are like, I don't like
Exactly.
so I think that we need to do a better job sort of presenting our argument to the American public as well as other publics, because I think we're falling short of that. And so that was part of where the American Clown came in. I really wanted to take when it show the face behind the grease paint, so to speak, so people could see, like, oh, that's just a regular person. And that's something for a lot of kids. I mean, I understand when a kid has a logic, like, when I'll go to a party and they'll be like, you're not a clown, you're just a regular person. It's like, well, regular people are clowns, that's we are. You are right, sir. But I think for the adult to not be able to delineate that, I think sometimes is a little like, I mean, come on, you're not that scared of me. Like, I think there's legitimate fears, but I would say it's 0.01 of the population. Most people just find it fashionable to dislike clowns right now. And so I want to try to I don't want to stamp that out. I just want to present an alternative.
No,
All of that.
yeah, that's super super interesting. And so with you making this film and this movie, like were there other like things behind it, like the narrative, like that influenced the narrative of and where you want to go and take the direction so people could understand? You pretty much broke it down for us, like you wanted us to see like where the clown is like behind the mask, but like did you like ever like take a look at the of like how like where clowning has like taken you, like where's it gotten now, like and like you said it is underrepresented underrepresented. It's
Yeah.
definitely underrepresented represented. I can't.
Represented.
Yes. Oh, it's funny because words because apparently right now it can't come out. Right. But so was it hard for you to like come up with the whole concept of it, or like it was just easy? Just was it like just a flow, or did you have to like come up with like a long script, or
Well,
I know
I mean,
there was like a documentary, but like was it something that like you felt like you had to do like a lot of like hard?
I think to answer that question, I think there's
So I'm sorry, we cut out a little bit.
oh yeah, in 2017 is when I started it, and I really started it with a group of people. I had been approached before because they're like, "Oh, I think you have such an interesting life. It'd be fun to." And I was like, "I don't know." But then I was working as a corporate clown for a fast food restaurant, working with Ronald McDonald in the field,
Mhm.
and we were all kind of like losing our jobs. So I thought, well, we should document this and then see where it goes, because this is happening in real time, and I don't see this program ever coming back. So that started happening, and around that same time, all the scary clown stuff was happening. And I just thought, like, there's just something, and it was right at the beginning of a big presidential thing that really started skewing what I
Right.
thought was entertainment and the news, and it was just what is what sort of thing. So, and then as we got 3 years into it, as we all know, the pandemic hit. So as we were all crawling out of this
Right.
sort of wherever we were, I was trying to figure out, well, where is everybody now? And so I just kind of continued the story.
Right.
I think we had an idea of where we wanted it to go. It didn't end up there because I think the
Got it.
producers really wanted it to kind of end on the clown has survived and the clown is back. And it does. It's not
Right.
bitter. It does end up with kind of, but it's not quite like everything is solved and it's all tied in a nice little bow. It kind of,
I
it
get it.
leaves you thinking, I wonder where it's going to go. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think you have a notion of where you want it to flow, just like we do with life. That we want something
Right.
to happen,
Right.
and
Oh,
then
sure.
the actual thing happens, and then you're like, okay, well, that was that. And so I think that's kind of the same thing that happens with the documentary, and I think that's true to the form of what it is. That's what a documentary is.
Mhm.
You're documenting what's going on during this
Exactly.
time. And we got to a point where I just couldn't add more people in without losing people. I didn't want
Right.
to. I love the big names, and the producers want the big names. But if I lose the rank and file and all the clowns that were in it, it feels like it's just a different documentary. So it just got kind
Right.
of to a
The delivery can become different.
Right.
yes.
Oh, yes, for sure. Because so I was like, how did you get how did Scott Barber and Casey Pinkston get involved when directing this with you? Or was
So
it like a joint venture, or was it?
yeah, one of the producers that I had, Bill Parks, has worked with Scott Barber before on the Guar documentary and the Orange Years, and so they've got kind of, they have kind of a thing clicking already. So I pulled him on. He was originally going to be co-director with me, but then he's just got pulled away, family stuff and homeschooling and that sort of thing. So Casey got pulled on to edit the film after another editor. We had
Okay.
work on it, but we wanted just to really kind of fine tune it. And he was just so exemplary that I said, you know what, I want you to be co-director with me, because I think you
Nice.
just done so much for the film, and I kind of want to create a little distance because I am in it, and I think it helps.
Right.
It helps me just to kind of look at it and not feel like I'm overly, that they're following me, because I'm
Right.
just one bozo in a world of lots of bozos. So I don't want it to be, but I'm the only one pushing the story forward. So it has to include me at some point, but I wanted it really to be more about everybody else. I'm like the backbone of it a little bit.
Yeah, that's understandable. And it seems pretty, I mean, it seems like you have a pretty nice roster. It's pretty stacked. And how'd you get the, like, each person like on a panel or like involved in it?
Everybody knows somebody in this business, and
Mhm.
clowns is no different. So, I got John C. Reilly actually did his kids' birthdays 20 years ago,
Okay.
and I've
Oh, okay.
maintained relations with him because John is just such a sweet dude, and we travel
Nice.
some of the same circles of people, and that's right. And he's
Okay.
got a real passion for clowning and for what they do, and I think of him as a cinema clown, and he's even
Yeah,
got a
Mhm.
stage show right now called Mr. Romantic in Los Angeles. That's just fabulous and wonderful.
Oh, nice.
well,
And Steve-O went to clown school with a bunch of my buddies. The year that I auditioned in 1997,
Uh-huh.
I didn't get in that year, and that was the last year they did clown school. But Steve-O was there and part of
Oh,
that whole group, so I got kind of introduced to him through that. David Arquette bought the rights to Bozo, and I did a movie with
oh, okay.
him in 2016. And so I reached out to him and said, he's always been a friend of the clown, and he's, sort of like a godfather to Bozo now. And anyway, so that's how I met him. And again, he's got our missions are pretty allied. He believes that clowns should spread positivity and joy and all that sort of stuff. So, it all just, and then Bill Irwin, who's kind of for a lot of young people, for myself, I'm not young people, but for myself, that when I was in school, Bill Irwin was like the North Star as far as clowning. He was in
Yeah.
Popeye, and he won a Tony Award for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I mean, he's a master clown. And so my friend Ambrose knew him, and he connected me with
Okay.
him. I had a list of people I wanted, and I got everyone that I wanted, so it's just very
It's
fortunate.
awesome.
that's very cool. It's funny whenever you mentioned David Arquette and Rights to Bizzo, it's like the signals went off my mind because I was like, second, he was Bizzo the Clown on stage with Yo Gabba Gabba for Coachella this year.
Yeah,
Like that's yeah. I was like, oh,
yeah,
all
he's
about
friends
to
with all those
like,
guys.
oh yeah.
Yeah, he bought the rights. I don't know what he paid for him, but I think he's trying to rebrand Bozo in a way that I think it's very interesting, and I support him. And he's learning as well as we all are. I think
Right.
he's comes from a very obviously a thespian type family. His
Mhm.
great grandfather his grandfather was a clown, and so he's got it in the blood. We know him as a film star and all that stuff, but
Right.
he's very interested in the world of vaudeville. So he's an ally for sure.
That's so fascinating. That's
Mhm,
very
that is. No, it was funny because whenever he said that and put it together, it's like I saw her eyes.
yeah.
Like, she just, I was coming, I cut it out. That's like a second, and then when she said, I was like, and then to me, I was like, oh, duh,
I'm excited to see what he's gonna do with that though. Like I really am.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is fascinating. So I want to ask you, like, were there like any moments like during filming, that like completely caught you like off surprise, like kind of caught off guard, like, oh wait, like I didn't know that was going to happen, and where like the project did change?
No, there was one thing that kind of pops out as you're saying that there was a big moment. We talk a lot about Ringling Brothers, and we talk about
Mhm.
how they closed, and there was a big sort of lamentation throughout the course of them. So we have a lot of Ringling clowns. There was very few places for a clown to go to get real, like very intense studying. One of them, if not the only one in America, was Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they had a clown
Right.
school in Sarasota that young people would go to. I mean, relatively young, out of college, out of high school. It was
Yeah.
very rigorous. They would get into clown school, and then they would be given a contract to go on the road or not. So a lot of people just didn't know about it, and for a lot of viewers that watch this are like, well, I never knew that. And they ride the train, and there's just a lot of interesting stuff about it. Well, towards the end of the movie, after we had kind of wrapped principal photography, we found a circus was coming back. And we're like, whoa, this changes everything, The circus
Yeah.
is coming back. And then, I did some Googling and kind of finding it's like they are coming back. The Ringling Brothers is coming
Mhm.
back, but without the animals and without
Right.
painted clowns. So it was like that doesn't
Oh yes.
not quite the sort of
Mhm.
like we're back. It's kind of like, oh yeah, but without
Yeah.
things that made the circus the two central. So it's a
Right.
rebranding, and so we had to find a way to put that in because we have to recognize that without it being kind of
Mhm.
like a big buzzkill for people, and it just adds to the sort of like things have changed. That there is a rebranding
Right.
of sorts, and clowning aren't always involved in that right now. So I think we need to look at that. As kids see these sort of major people, or they see the horror clowns, the Pennywise, but we
Mhm.
don't have other clowns that are represented. Like the bozos or the whatever else. To them, they're just going to assume everyone is like out to kill them or something. If they're
Right.
Right.
It's true. Yeah.
John Wayne Gacy sure didn't help either.
that didn't help.
No.
And I can't say much about John Wayne Gacy. I don't know anything about him as a clown. Like I said, I know he's a prolific
Right.
murderer of young men,
Mhm.
but I don't know. We don't know anything about his clown. We just know that he acted as a clown.
Right.
So
Oh, for sure.
and didn't do us a lot of good. But I think we just have to find new role models, and those role models will be they'll be different. Maybe they won't have as much makeup. They but I don't think clowns are necessarily going completely away. I just think they're kind of going underground. And I do have I think optimism for the future because I think young people in their 20s and getting up to 30, like when I do lots of kids parties, I do lots of adult parties, I do lots of 30 somethings having a party at a bar somewhere, and I come in
Mhm.
as a clown and I'm there to surprise someone, and I am just met with just the sweetest, nicest, most wonderful young people that are just excited about clowns. So I'm hoping,
Mhm.
as the pendulum swings in life and things become out of favor and in favor, that we're kind of cresting this new wave of becoming slightly more in favor, that
Right.
that we don't have to be sort of ostracized like we've been the past 20 years. So that's the hope.
Yes, it makes sense because, well, if you notice that in history, like we said, swinging the pendulum, whenever like we're going through like a rough time, which we're definitely going through like a rough time in the world right now in general, that people look for nostalgia, look for things that make them happy.
Mhm.
That definitely, do you think that that's going to play a big key in that?
I sure hope so. We have where I live in Highland Park, we have Bob Baker's marionettes, which is a huge thing with the puppets. And, I think there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of joy in these old styles and the things of the old, these rich traditions that we have. So to throw them out for something that I feel like is going to play, brighter but shorter, like the horror clown or whatever else, that will fall out of favor, and then people will want something kind of like a little bit more kindred again. The average kid doesn't know that clowns are, or that they should be scared. What they're usually being coached by their parents who are like, "Oh, I don't like clowns. I'm scared." And that little
Right.
kid says,
It's
Exactly.
"Oh,
true. Yeah.
do I not like clowns? Like I seems appealing to me." So I
Mhm.
think once that sort of kind of moves its sort of natural course, young people coming up will be, I think, a lot more sort of like, that's my mom doesn't like. I mean, how many times do we want to be like
Mhm.
our parents? So if our parents are like that, we're like, I'm not like that. It's stupid. I like clowns.
Right. Yeah. But what's funny, what made me think was I thought back of a story because whenever you said that how you would, even go perform for people at bars or people like, in their 30s and stuff, different parties. Because my friends, when they came back from their deployment, it was a group of Navy SEALs. It was funny because they wanted to throw a big party and they said they didn't really know any people. And I said, well, y'all met the right person. So I was like, they're like, okay, well, we want to have a big party. And they said, well, wait, what can we do? I said, you could do whatever your heart desires. And so my friend John tells me, he said, I've always wanted a clown at my party. He goes, can you find me a clown? And I was like, I'll find you a clown. He actually found himself a clown. He found an awesome one. It was funny because I mean, everybody, she took over the whole party. She even had rabbits, and it's like face paint. She was face painting them all. Like, I never saw like so many Navy SEALs with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle face masks painted on their faces, and but it was funny because everybody was just so happy. Because at first I was afraid that I was like, okay, we'll get a clown, but I didn't know how everyone else would take to it. I knew that he and I would like it, but it was a hit. It drew in the
Great.
models and all of San Diego. That's funny.
That's great. I think, we crave to be, to feel young again. And I think clowns help us do that and to feel, a little bit more worry free. I mean, clowns historically are in every society, in every culture,
Yes.
because it helps us humanize our struggles. And we see
Right.
somebody else, failing at something, and if only to be like, well, at least I'm not like that guy. I mean, that guy's horrible.
Right.
So, I think there's a place for us, and I would say, and I'll take it one step further. And clowns and jesters and all these people, we also use we use our power of comedy to question authority and to
Yes.
and to basically question power. So if we're killing these people, so to speak, not literally, but if we're trying to
Right.
silence their voices, when we question power and question, things that don't want to be questioned, you have to like understand that people that don't have a sense of humor and people that are about themselves, are
Yeah.
dangerous people because they can't laugh.
Mhm.
They have no reflection. They have no ability I think that should scare people. And so if we're trying to cancel to cancel or kill off the messenger, we should ask what kind of country are we living in that we have to silence people who have a dissenting opinion. I mean, that to me is jarring. So I don't like the fact that like we're taking a step in that direction. It feels like that's not a healthy part of a society that I think is firing on all cylinders.
Right.
That's understandable. So do you think that clowning in general is more embraced in other countries about better or taken more seriously as an art form as like than it is in America? Like what's your take on that?
I don't I'm an American. I've lived in America my whole life. I do know that there are other countries that are steeped in tradition with clowning. The Russians have a huge
Oh
clowning
yeah.
culture. Um, the South American Brazilians, when I worked with Ronald, we would have people from all different areas. We'd have Kiwis, we'd have New Zealanders, we'd have Australians, we'd have. I mean, they
Cool.
came from everywhere. The Japanese had their own sort of people that assisted Ronald in the field, so it was very interesting and worthy of its own documentary. To see kind of how people are perceived. I know with a lot of cultures, I do think the Mexican and sort of South American, and I think they have a different sort of relationship with their clown. I think maybe it is. I mean, just even watching TV here in Los Angeles, if I'm ever looking at Spanish channels, the clowns will come up, and I think it's
Right.
it's a lot more, sort of. I guess it's woven into the fabric of their culture. I've also heard though that the clowns can be very blue and kind of very like adult oriented, but still with the kids. So
Yeah.
I just think it's the way we celebrate things. When I worked with Ronald, if I ever went to like an area of town that I felt like was, I don't know, like I hate to even say it, like like more fluent or just it felt like there was
Mhm.
a expectation there to like not want to deal with me. But if it was in a lower
Mhm.
surf community, people would love, they just be like, oh, like, oh my God, so I think it really is about um I don't know about what your perception of what you think this is and how you want to
Yeah.
accept this person into your
Right.
community. And I sometimes, it's funny where you feel like you're being barred from sort of participation. It's not exactly where you think you'd be barred.
And it's funny that you say that because I didn't really think about it until we started kind of like thinking about it and talking about the
Yes.
podcast interview. And I was like, as a clowns, it's like it almost seems like in a way sometimes they're treated like a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
And it's like and because it's almost like okay, like this for example, like the circus coming back. That's the way I feel about it. Because it's like, I mean, I don't feel like clowns were harming people.
No.
Now the animals, the mistreatment, I can understand pulling the animals out, but why pull the clowns away? So it's kind of like when that's an element of circus. So it's like I kind of feel that way, and then with the way it's like it's kind of like oh it the scary clown thing, and it's there's more to it. So I just kind of feel like I think it just needs to be dipped into more and explored. And I feel like if maybe because now like with modern technology and everyone's on like TikTok and Instagram, I think maybe it might take one kid to like a kid in the younger generation to do something that might go viral that's clown related.
One Pixar movie.
Yeah, I think that's to spark something off. So
Sure. And I think it boils down to there's just not a lot of very good representation. I mean, there is somebody that could be could
Mhm.
be that, and maybe David wants to be that with his bozo with kind of pushing the bozo character to new frontiers. But there is I don't, for better or worse, we just have these sort of the Pennywise of the world, and they're not going away because, there's always, especially now in the industry, the IP addresses everything. And so if
right.
Pennywise is making money, they're going to keep pushing Pennywise. I think they have a new Dairy Street episode or thing coming out where Pennywise will be on
Mhm.
TV. And, so I think
Yeah,
this
I heard
stuff
about that.
it's here to stay, and the only way to combat it, I mean, is just to have more faces out there. I mean, Zach Galifianakis played a clown in Baskets.
Mhm.
Puddle's Pity Party, who's also in the documentary, he does a great sold out show, and he sings all these wonderful songs. I mean, Puddles is not in there, but Mike is in there. Puddle has some footage in there, but it's I think there's a way to combat it, but we really have to and I'm not against it. Listen,
Uh-huh.
people
Right.
that
No,
like
for
horror
sure.
clowns, awesome, great. I just don't think it should be the only person at the table when it comes to this. And I think our limited understanding of clowns is like we want to just put them all there. That just becomes easy for us. It's like, oh, that's just a clown. No, the horror clowns, they kill kids. That's what they do now. So don't worry about them.
Apparently.
Right.
I don't think it's that simple. People aren't that simple. We're not all one way and all the other way. We're not that simple.
Right. Oh, for sure. And that kind of brings me back to makes you think about like one of my going back to jog my memory that positive representation of a clown was Campbell Modern Family, which brings us to the next question.
Oh
How
yeah.
was that? Whenever you're Modern Family.
For which one? Oh,
So
Modern
like
Family. Modern Family.
yes, Modern Family. Yes.
Oh, it's great. He's wonderful, and I will. Eric Stone Street, who I've reached out to and I've worked with several times. Eric is wonderful. I don't know anyone as a clown that is more passionate about positive reflections and performers and clowns than that guy is. I think the world of him, and he was so fun to work with. I think he was having a ball. He did. I did hear a story where it's his to tell, but since he's not here, I'll tell it. But I did hear a story where they found out he was a clown, like Steve Leviathan, or that created the show, and so they're like, "Oh, you're a clown." Like, well, we'll definitely have to use that in this thing. So it was something that he had a lot of input in. And then that clown episode that we did, the clown funeral, like he had fun getting the props made and all that sort of stuff. So I think he's just great. I did another show with him that he was hosting called Domino Masters. And at one point, he's talking on the phone and he's doing a bit. And he says something like, it's like a joke. Like he's talking and there's something happens, like, oh, I'll call you later, mom, which is kind of funny and kind of like, like, oh, he still lives at home with his mom. But then, and I didn't think twice of it. I was like, oh, that's good. It's a good ad lib. But he went to me afterwards and he's just kind of just in passing. He's like, you don't think that's too cruel, right? I don't want them to think clowns are like all living at home. Like we're all, I was like, no, I didn't take it like that. But he's so sensitive about a negative portrayal of a clown that he's even in his ad libs, he's like concerned if that, feels like it's below the belt. And so I just thought the world of him that he would even consider that. And so it was a joy. It was an absolute joy. I would work with him at any time. And he's a wonderful, very funny clown. Very funny.
It's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. That's so cool. So what is there so going to see this film, what is it that you can tell the audience to expect? What do you think is some good keynotes that for us to.
Sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, the film is really, it's a primer for people that don't know a lot about clowns or don't know what a clown goes through to become a clown, and how that job is and how tough it is really to kind of be good at it. I mean, they joke and saying, being a clown is very serious business. And it is. It is. There's a lot of work and dedication that go into it. And it's something, it's even more than that. I think it's even more kind of a calling, right? No one sets out to be a clown. No one says, I mean, maybe some do, but it's very rare that I didn't know at 4 that I would be a clown, or much less did I dream in high school that one day I would be a clown. So you kind of fall into it because it feeds your soul in a very unique way. And then you see the value behind it. And it's something that you just feel like, God, I'm good at this, and I like doing this, and I'm passionate about it. So I think that hopefully they'll get that. I also think they'll get some really funny anecdotes from. We have a lot of great people in it. Steve, like I said, Bill Irwin, Steve-O, John C. Reilly, David Arquette. We have Mike Gear, who works with Puddles. We have Mike Odd, who works with a band called Max Sabbath. So they'll be introduced, and then we have so many clowns, Casey and Tina, and we have Carlos. We have so many clowns that have been doing it their whole lives that I think they'll get kind of like a real kick out of, like, oh my God, I didn't think, like that share their own stories and testimonials of how they got into this. And I think people get a kick out of just seeing ordinary people like, oh my God, it's weird. It's weird that they're a clown. So I'm excited for people to finally see it.
Imagine. So it's like, do you have like any release information yet, or like
all we have, because we're an independent production, we haven't been acquired by anybody as far as streaming or whatever. We have our first premiere, which is June 23rd in Hollywood at the Dances with Films Film Festival. So that'll be the first time the public sees it. I think I've had maybe 10 people see this, and so I'm excited to see how this goes on. There's some talk that maybe we try to do a limited theater run, that we'd have that, either we would finance or we'd get finance that would include some clowns and personal appearances and stuff. So we'll see how that all kind of shakes out.
Awesome.
Really cool.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, that is so cool. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us. But thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, this was exciting.
Oh, it was.
And it was like, of course, like she and I we just started reminiscing about our childhood and bouncing off. And then it's like, then that's when we were just like, clowns were like, they were never scared of us. We always
exactly. They never were.
So we are so happy to give you this platform, and we'll go ahead and like include like any links and everything. So, but thank you so much again for joining us, and everybody. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and check out Gilly. Check out this movie, American Clown. I know it's going to be full of lots of knowledge, laughs, and just goodness, happiness. And thank you again. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. This is Kimberly Bryant.
This is Blair Bryant.
And we've got Gilly with us, and see you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bryant sisters, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.